All right, well, I'm going to jump in here and get started with our introduction so we can start on time. So thank you, everybody, for joining us for the afternoon breakout session today. Excuse me, this session, this 1 hour session is actually going to be broken up into 2 half-hour components with kind of parallel topics. The first 30 minutes, we're going to be joined by Mary Laura Hammond, who's the Grants and Program Administrator with GST Michigan Works, so Genesee Shiawassee Thumb Michigan Works, and Mindy Daigle, who's the Director of Business Development with TuaPath out of Colorado, and they're going to talk to us about the silver lining to COVID virtual coaching. And then when they're done with their 30-minute presentation, we're going to shift gears to another positive aspect of how COVID has impacted our industry with Michigan Works Southeast and igniting the community for virtual hiring events. So there we're going to be joined by Patty Sudbay, Sunshine Plato, and Amber Collins from Michigan Works Southeast. So thank you for joining us, and Mary and Mindy, take it away.
Great. Welcome, everyone. I'm thrilled to see we have about 26 of us here. We must have the optimists because we have chosen to focus on the positives of COVID. Few as they are, we have picked out a few. We have 10 positives. Virtual coaching has made us look at positives for participants. We've got 5 for participants and 5 for coaching. So we'd love to have your questions, put them in the chat. And at the end, we hope to have some times for discussion. If you'd like to see the slides bigger, please feel free to go to full screen. Before we dive into the 5 positives for participants, I want to set the stage. For the last number of years, we've been using a coaching mindset when looking at working with PATH families to help them achieve employment and self-sufficiency. We've been using the prosperity agenda to train our coaches in family-centered coaching. Prior to COVID hitting and really hitting us in March of 2020, we had already contacted with TuaPath to develop a mechanism for our PATH clients to engage through technology online in the PATH program. We were lucky because we had no vision of what was coming at us, but by the time we had new PATH clients coming to us, we were fully operational with TuaPath and able to do the orientation completely online. Using this framework, we think that we were able to develop a program that positively impacted both the long-term and short-term self-sufficiency of participants and the clients, and was helpful to the coaches as well. We engaged the prosperity agenda to do an evaluation for us, and so most of this presentation is excerpted from that evaluation. A lot of it came from the 400 participant surveys we did, interviews, and focus groups. During COVID, we were completely online, and most participants used a mobile phone. From reports in the TuaPath system, we know that they accessed the system 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, sometimes even in the middle of the night. And instead of handing a file into their coach after orientation and then not having it themselves, they had access to all of their paperwork for reference anytime they needed it. Before COVID, we're one of the larger providers of PATH program among the state Michigan Works agencies, and we had orientations that ranged in person from 5 to 40 people. After the orientation as a group, then the coaches went over individual paperwork and scheduled their next meeting. Now, with the orientation online, they can take as long as they want to do the orientation. And some people just move more quickly. And we also have people with literacy and reading issues. And sometimes it takes them longer, not just to go through the orientation, but also to fill out the paperwork. The coaches have noted that when you have all of that online, it makes it take less time because they have all of that complete before they actually talk to people. And I was going to say in person, it's in person on the phone. And so that's what they've developed is they do the orientation online and then they move to a phone conversation with their coach. I want to note that by the time they've finished the 13 steps of orientation, they've already completed their family automated screening tool, FAST, which is required by the DHHS office, and they've also completed their work zone assessment. Each, next slide, please. Each office has an orientation coach. They take the new client phone calls and they help them get started on TourPath. And then once they complete the orientation, they talk to their assigned coach. One thing that our coaches have noted is that instead of sitting across from their client in their office, they're kind of more in a neutral zone because they're both at home, they're both on the phone, and they feel like it's helped engage more trust with the client more quickly. And I'm going to turn it over to Mindy to talk about a little bit more about the details of the positives with the participants and how TourPath works.
So driver's seat is really the third benefit of this virtual coaching. And as Mary mentioned, GST Michigan Works has been using family center coaching for a number of years. And it really was this initial move from a transactional approach to one of understanding what the family needs that really started to get clients in the driver's seat. COVID had a lot to do with that, but also implementing TourPath. It really kind of accelerated that. Until last year, all of the tools that were used for coaching, along with every other single piece of requirement that Path put forward, was paper-based. And as we all know, paper gets lost way too easily, way too frequently. They fill it out, as Mary mentioned, they hand it in, it gets filed, and rarely do they ever see it again. And while we moved to editable PDFs and using email for sharing documents, we know that that still is very challenging for our participants. And so TourPath was initially designed, and let me just say, we actually rolled out TourPath 2 years before COVID even hit. So, but with that insight, we actually designed it to be participant-driven, interactive, and more transparent for the client. Everything that needs to happen in the program, pretty much except for coaching, is done on the platform. And so what you're seeing here on the left is actually a printed version of a goals written entirely by the client using their own words into a path. It's kind of the result of that effort. This next slide actually shows you what the interface looks like and what they would use to enter their goals. The approach that Family Center Coaching uses is kind of plan, do, review. And it's a process used in Family Center Coaching that asks pertinent questions to help clients identify their goals, when they want to achieve it, how, what could get in the way. And every goal follows the same process, whether it's around childcare, education, or employment. And so the act of writing down goals helps to identify ways for them to solve the problem and help to evaluate appropriate actions that ultimately helps them choose the action that will most likely lead to success. So this is really what TourPath was founded upon, is really helping them to articulate their goals and action steps that would be taken towards self-sufficiency and employment. We also know that when they write it down, it's meaningful for them, and that it drives motivation and it keeps them engaged and committed to their change in behavior. And as one coach stated, you know how things can get overwhelming. They don't see how they can get to that goal before they write it down. Just the act of writing it down is helping them. And I think that tool, TourPath, helps as never before. It was just another piece of paper you gave them when they were in the office. I wanted to take this opportunity to, so let me just go back a second. I apologize. This happens to be the interface that participants will see when they first log into TourPath. And it is here where they will actually identify their long-term goal, This is where they see their coach. But this is really where they're starting to identify those goals and action steps. And as you can see, they could be short-term goals. They could be long-term goals. Some are going to stay on their roadmap, as we call it, for a long period of time. But others are going to come and go as they work through that plan. As Mary mentioned, every time they complete an action step right here where you see the little green icon, when they complete that and it's been reviewed by the coach, it will actually show up right here as a victory. And I think there's 22 steps in the GST orientation. And if they can get through orientation, then there's 23 reasons to celebrate. That you'll see that on the top. So this is what the interface actually looks like on a cell phone. And so here you can again see their time, their notifications, their roadmap, and this is how it's laid out for them. So we also provide a lot of notifications to help them with like next meeting date, when they need to turn in their, their hours of participation, when there's some upcoming due dates. So we're all about kind of prompts to help them also build those executive functioning skills. So the other, I guess the fourth positive was that despite COVID, participants were really sticking with it. And that one thing Mary didn't mention in terms of the timing of the evaluation is that while we would have liked to have had a little bit more time before that evaluation kicked off to really evaluate virtual coaching and the use of TuaPath, we only had 2 months. We actually trained coaches in June. We rolled out TuaPath in the beginning of July, and it was the middle of August when evaluation started taking place. So you could say that TuaPath was still a very new tool in the toolbox, both for coaches and for participants. So in parsing through the evaluation data, I was really excited to read that coaches were seeing a difference already in engagement and retention, as well as the goals achieved. And while the outcomes weren't not necessarily employment, because no one was hiring and we were all locked down, they were taking steps to deal with COVID and the impact on themselves and their families. So why was this? Well, I think for a lot of the reasons that Mary mentioned, they were meeting clients where they were at. We were leveling the playing field. We were building trust, and we were now engaging with them. And they were interacting on an online platform that from anywhere at any time, they could visually see their path forward. They could tackle each step one at a time, which, as we all know, keeps clients focused. It keeps them from being overwhelmed. They could reflect on what they had accomplished. And despite how small an accomplishment was, they could see it. And they could see them start to add up as their victories. As one coach said, they're seeing their victories, and that they're not giving up, and that we just keep going on to the next step. We keep saying one step at a time, one thing at a time. Let's see what we can do and keep going forward and helping them celebrate those victories. As I mentioned, also TuaPath does a lot to help engage clients and to keep them on track with program requirements. We send out emails and text messages regarding upcoming meetings, getting their hours in on a weekly basis. And that way we can also set reminders so they don't miss an important due date. A few weeks ago, when you guys get out your mandatory requirements, which started September 1st, we actually used TuaPath to send out to the entire caseload both an email and text message to alert them as to the new change. And we also created an action step that we put on every single participant's roadmap. Again, outlining the details. So if they missed it in the text message, they missed it in the email, it was right there on their roadmap when they logged in. And what we also did is we asked them to acknowledge the receipt of these new policies by entering in their personal identification number, which allowed them to sign the document or acknowledge it electronically. So as I'm sure you've heard it said, living in poverty is like functioning with no sleep. I don't know about you, but I can't do it. Even in my earlier years, I was one that needed 8 hours of sleep. We also know from research that toxic stress of poverty impacts clients' ability to problem solve, plan, prioritize, organize, take initiatives, and stay motivated. So it was our goal with TuaPath to help build not only goal-setting skills, but executive functioning skills, which we all know from our own experience takes a lot of practice, and then more practice, and then more practice. And it's really to this end that ToApath provides a place where clients can organize and deal with the challenging aspects of their life in a manageable way, breaking down intimidating and unpleasant challenges into small steps. And to build time management, planning, and prioritization skills, as I mentioned, we send out those automatic nudges. So I don't know about you, but I rely on reminders all the time. And so we've built those into ToApath to give them that benefit as well. Interestingly, one unintended benefit of the nudges that we had around getting in their work participation hours was that it really helped to change the coaching relationship. So often we heard that the conversation with participants is focused on, did you get those, you got to get that paperwork in, you're not putting in your hours, you got to be in compliance. And so what we tried to do is put that effort onto ToApath. So we send out weekly reminders and nudges. And we found that, ToApath has become the bad guy, and no more do coaches need to have that conversation. I mean, they might if you're that person who is really procrastinating, not getting in there. But we found that, for the most part, 87% of participants do not need to be nudged by their coach because they're paying attention to those things that are being put out on the platform. So you're probably wondering what percentage of the caseload is actually technically savvy enough to use ToApath. Well, actually most. If you can use Facebook on your phone, you can use ToApath. And I can tell you that those that are technically savvy really appreciate the ability to work independently. Those that aren't actually have found ToApath to be a really safe place to practice the use and understand technology, and they need to be able to do that to get jobs in this economy. For those extreme situations, coaches can go in and enter the content for all those participants if need be. And then therefore the participant can actually see what's going on. Lastly, I kind of mentioned that we provide a tool where participants can enter hours. And I want to kind of give you a look at what that was. So here is a calendar interface that makes it really easy for them to click into the calendar, pick the activity, and enter all the information for the state form. This is a love fest with participants. Again, they don't have to carry that piece of paper around with them. They can enter hours as it's happening. So let's say, for instance, in real time, if I'm coming home on the bus from working a job, I can take out my phone, enter my hours. If needed, I could take a picture of my pay stub. I can upload it all at once, and it's right there. So again, it's going back to building those executive functioning skills, for planning and organization that are really essential. And so we all know that daily life is challenging when you're living in poverty. And so through coaching and what's being practiced there at Michigan Works Southwest, and now the use of ToApath, I think we're really helping for clients to stay focused, to be able to set and achieve goals one step at a time, and to really build out those executive functioning skills that, quite honestly, we all take for granted. Back to you, Mary.
Okay. Mindy mentioned Michigan Works Southwest. That's because we have 5 Michigan Works agencies that are using ToApath for their PATH population. And we're all at different points with that, but we have 5 of us who are doing it. Some have been on for a while, and some are just starting. But one of the great things is that we meet monthly and share our best practices so that we can not reinvent the wheel. As some of us will develop some action steps that we want to add to ToApath, the rest of the group can borrow those if they like, and add them to their ToApath platform. So that's been a great positive to have a professional community to work in with ToApath.
Thank you.
Now, moving on to the positives for coaches. If you think you're seeing similarities for coaches as for participants, you're right. The 5 positives for coaches were culled from quotes from coaches in focus groups. Because the need was evident for the technology platform, as both participants and coaches were working from home, you might wonder, did we have kickback from coaches? Anytime there's something new, sometimes it isn't always received well. we really didn't have much kickback because people saw that we really needed it. They were just thankful we had something that was available. Next slide. On the right side, you'll see that TuaPath has a reminder of their next appointment. We talked about that. It's automated, which saves times for coaches. Because I'm also in TuaPath as a participant, I'm reminded every Friday that I need to enter my hours. And then at the end of the month, if I haven't entered my hours, I get a gentle reminder. And then I get a little sterner reminder. So it's not the coach contacting me, it's the TuaPath coach who's making those reminders for me. So the actual coach doesn't really have to engage with that unless the participant is really missing in action and there needs to be movement toward noncompliance. And we found that most of our participants are in the age range of between 20 and 30. And those participants really use text messaging. They really aren't focused on email. And so we find that being able to communicate in a variety of ways, including text messages and the email, is effective. As mentioned, it kind of leveled the playing field. It's that trust building. Instead of being behind a desk, both people are on the phone. It may be that both people on the phone might have pets barking in the background or children in the background. So it just feels like you're on an even playing field with the participant, and people can open up more. The coaches have said sometimes they also pick up on family dynamics, just overhearing what's going on in the room, so to speak, while they're talking to the client. Next slide, please. Not knowing for sure, but now that we're back to mandatory participation, we're not sure that this still is valid, but the coaches really felt that they had the latitude to focus on the family priorities. And that, of course, was because we weren't being held to the WPR. But they were able to work with people on what the things were that they needed to deal with at that point. And now with being able to focus on barrier removal as an activity, that's something that we're seeing. If they haven't been able to deal with all of those barriers, they're still able to do that. And right now, of course, one of the barriers is childcare. We talked about how submitting paperwork was easier, and having multiple ways of engaging makes it easier to keep in touch. And really they're feeling like sometimes the participants are chasing the coach, not the coach chasing the participants. And they really are seeing those smaller victories. Next slide. Mm-hmm. Scaffolding for coaching. Now, what is scaffolding? Scaffolding is a word that we use in family-centered coaching, and it basically means providing as much or as little support that a client needs. So it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. Some people don't need much support, but some people need a lot of support. So TuaPath enables us to have some of that scaffolding, that support that's right on their phone, that the coach can work with them. There's also a tool we haven't talked much about, and that is the Wheel of Life. And that's something that's used in our family-centered coaching. And that's something that is also in the orientation, but can be done periodically so that the client and the coach can see where growth has happened and where they may want to look at setting some short-term or long-term goals. And what's interesting is in the reports, we're able to do a graph and see how things have changed over the period of time that they've been in the PATH program. So they may come in and maybe they had housing and legal issues as areas of concern, but maybe 3 months later, their housing is stable, their legal issues have been resolved, and now they're able to focus on their employment goal. Next slide, please. Unfortunately, Richard, who's one of our on the ground providers, was not able to be here today, but he will be available for questions if you'd like to talk to someone who is working every day in the trenches with family-centered coaching. And Mindy and I, of course, are available for contact afterwards too. Holly, what questions do we have and how much time do we have left?
We have 6 minutes and there aren't any questions. You have some positive feedback coming in. People are excited about the tool. I have a question. Can you guys talk about how much it costs?
It is a per coach fee. We do not care how many participants are actually using the system. The cost really depends because we have 2 modules. One is what we call our roadmap module, and that's really around everything with the system, including all the emailing and the document management capabilities that we haven't even touched upon, and then the goal kind of setting capabilities. And then the other module we have is really around that what we call monthly timesheet, where they're entering their work participation hours. So it depends on what modules you get. If you get both, you're talking around $200 a month per coach. We also offer contract pricing and we also offer volume discounting. So that's kind of where it starts and it kind of goes down and gets better from there. Great.
Thank you, Mindy.
The other thing I'd like to mention is that in addition to PATH, we also are using the platform for FAE&T. And just recently, the state made a change and we're able to offer the FAE&T program to adults and families who are receiving SNAP food benefits. So that should increase the number of people in that program. And just like PATH, they can go into to a PATH and do the orientation there. And we're looking at whether we might consider using the platform to provide some content for WIOA participants as well. I'm in the process of trying to increase the amount of action steps and links to make them local or at least state action steps. You know, someone can come up with their own action steps all the time, but we're trying to use it as a resource so that a coach doesn't have to be have their knowledge up on every single community resource that might be out there.
What Mary's talking about is really just creating a resource library where content that you might be emailing to somebody or say go to our website to find, that we can put that all into a path. So as they come up with a, let's say, housing as a goal, you can actually push to their roadmap as a task for them to complete information that might give them a list of housing resources or a step-by-step instruction or watch this video or, hey, here's some forms that you're going to need when you go to talk to, you know, a landlord that you'll need to have completed. So it's really kind of helping to wrap around all those supportive services. And again, just minimize the stress that participants have in those challenging situations and giving them, you know, all the information they possibly need to be successful.
Very nice.
I should also mention that in Michigan Works Southwest, they're also using ToAPath and piloting a non-custodial parent program on ToAPath. So yeah, it doesn't matter the number of programs. And if you have coaches that play dual roles, it's, you know, we don't care.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see Lisa Temple here commented how great this is. And she's one of our Business Resource Network success coaches. So it's kind of a different model, but it would be a real similar way to utilize that tool.
Yep. And also, like Mary mentioned, we will make this work for your environment. We're not asking you to adhere to our kind of process. And so we completely customize. And if I, you know, did a demo for you and showed you, you know, GST Michigan Works versus Southwest versus SEMCA versus Michigan Works Northeast, you would see that there are similarities, but they are all very different. And so we try to bring in those differences and work around your processes in the implementation.
That's excellent.
Some of the 5 MWAs have done less paperwork. Some of us are hanging on to paper desperately, or maybe individual coaches are hanging on desperately. But one of our DHHS PATH coordinators said to me, and he's been along for the whole ride as we've implemented this. He said, well, what this really is is like the Bridges program is to MDHHS, is what TUAPath is for Michigan Works. And I thought that was kind of summarizing it. It's a good way of looking at it, of that the clients were already engaging on MDHHS Bridges program. And now we've just moved into the technological world with our Michigan Works programs.
Sure. There's an app for everything else, right? Why don't we have the app?
That's for sure. And we are looking forward to seeing the second half of this because there's lots of silver linings to the COVID time that we've had. So we'll turn it over to our next presenters, if that's okay, Holly, to find out how they have used our virtual world to engage with clients and employers. Take it away.
Okay. So I am logging out right now.
Hello, everyone.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon. We are very timely. This is really cool. It's like exactly 1:30. So we are going to talk today about igniting our community for virtual hiring events. And let me just get started. I can figure out the tech here. There we go.
Great, Sunshine. So my name is Amber Collins. I'm a business services specialist out of Michigan Works Southeast. I work out of Jackson County, and I look forward to speaking with everybody today.
Hi, and I am Sunshine Plato. I'm the program administrator for Michigan Works Southeast. I work out of Lenawee County and just was previously a career advisor and just took on this promotion.
Hi, everybody. I'm Patty Sudbay. I'm a career advisor with Michigan Works Southeast. I'm up here in Livingston County. Thank you for attending our 10 and 30 today. We're excited that you're here. And we're also excited to share with you a program that we developed, which involved our community partners, our employers, and our job seekers. And it was to promote the success of a virtual hiring event called Healthcare Heroes that took place back in February of 2021.
Great. Thank you, Patty. So really, I would like to know who we're speaking with. So if I see that there's 41 viewers, if you could please type in the chat, what is your title and, are you a career manager, business services team member, employment services? What's your title? Type them in the chat for me. I know there's people here. Oh, thank you. All right, so I'm seeing some program administration, program coordinator, business services. Anybody else? Business services. Lead business services, Macomb, community college. Okay, great. So I'm going to ask you a couple other questions. A career advisor, awesome. So my questions are, tell me, before COVID, tell me these things, okay? Before COVID, raise your hand in the chat. How many of you knew what Zoom was? Or Teams or WebEx or other virtual platforms? Raise your hand if you knew what that was. There's like a little icon in your chat box. Anybody? Okay, somebody did. Knew about them but never used them. Couple thumbs up. Okay. All right, so that's what I was going to ask next is, yeah, we knew about them, but did we use them? Who used them regularly before COVID? Ooh, Lisa Temple, that's awesome. You knew about them and you used them fairly regularly. That's cool. I'm going to say I did not. Like, I heard about what Zoom was, but I don't think I know how to use that. So prior to COVID, which of you, it looks like we have business services here. So some of you have planned job fairs, correct? Now, did we plan job fairs that were virtual before COVID? No, probably not. Virtual? Who did that? We want to meet people in person. We want to do that handshake and have a handoff with people and see their faces. Nope, we didn't do that. Now, after COVID, did you struggle at engaging customers to find work? You know, a couple months after COVID when they started opening things up again, did you find yourself at a loss to help employers connect with local talent? Because I know we did. And did you find that one of the biggest barriers that you had for helping employers find job seekers was that job seekers just didn't know how to use the virtual platforms? I like this. Yeppers still having trouble. Yes, we are still having trouble connecting with those employers and job seekers and getting them figured out. So today, that's what we're going to discuss. We're going to talk about how we worked with our participants to meet with employers virtually and try to ignite them for this new platform. So let's take it to the next slide. Amber?
Yes. So thank you, Sunshine, for laying that platform. It sounds and looks like all of us are really, kind of in this together, right? This COVID-19 really pole vaulted us into this new virtual world. And then, really workforce was no exception to that. And so trying to kind of look into our toolbox, finding new tools in order to assist employers and our job seekers in filling these positions, right? I mean, we were finding that employers were still desperately seeking job seekers. They still are. But by taking away those face-to-face platforms, face-to-face job fairs, it was just a whole new environment, right? And so I just want to quickly kind of set the stage for you, like how this prep week kind of came about. So, looking at our new virtual world, Michigan Works Southeast really collaborated with the partners, Brazen, Platform, employer sectors to really try to work in providing these job fairs virtually so that we didn't really miss a beat, right? We just really needed to continue making those connections. And so our first virtual event here at Michigan Works Southeast was our Healthcare Heroes event. And it really helped, this job fair really helped to identify an opportunity for us in a way to prepare and teach, I guess, this new virtual world to our job seekers, right? Not even just our job seekers, but employers too, who were also very, comfortable with the face-to-face type interactions. And so, we reached out to our healthcare employers in our 5-county region to really gauge interest and gather participation among these employers to really work at putting together this virtual first job fair. And throughout this job fair, it really became, it really became clear to us the effort needed in order to really work to prepare our job seekers. So I believe either Sunshine or I think Patty's next to kind of talk about those prep weeks.
Actually, I'll talk a little bit about that. So the business services team had developed this idea to have a virtual job fair for the healthcare participants in our region. And what they did was, we need to prepare our employers and our job seekers on what this is going to be about. So once I was asked to be involved, I was asked to begin formulating a proposal on what it looked like to have a virtual hiring event and prepare job seekers. So I started researching the different platforms that might be used for virtual hiring. And Brazen was one that we used before. And As one of the workshop developers in our area, I looked at Brazen and checked it out as a participant and started screenshotting a bunch of things because I knew that at some point somebody was going to ask me or someone else about how to prepare job seekers for this. So I preemptively took those screenshots, looked at the different things, and learned that Brazen was a platform that was all about chatting. And so, you know, being who I am, I try to put myself in the participant's shoes and discovered that if I were trying to find a job and I'm going into this platform, I'm going to be nervous. I want to know exactly what it's going to be about. Am I going to have to talk with an employer face-to-face on a virtual level, or is it a chat option? How do I get in? Do they automatically see me and hear me as soon as I get into the screen? And so I started learning. Brazen was the platform that Leo had graciously allowed us to use as a partner. And so we took a look at what it was going to look like, and really it's a chat opportunity. So you got to see a booth, you know, all the different booths of the employers that were going to be at the event, and you get to click on the event to enter and start chatting with an employer, and you get about 5 or 10 minutes to chat with them. So I was asked to develop an outline that began and became the Job Fair Prep Week, and it was a hit, and everybody was like, yes, let's do that. So we decided to have a customized training on resume, interview, and giving people virtual hiring tips for job seekers. We decided to also market this with the event taking place. So the week before the event, we would market the Job Fair Prep Week so that people would be prepared for the hiring event. And that was to spark a flame in the job seekers' minds about how they might, what they might face in the new world. So then I went to Patty and I said, Patty, let's figure out a way to make this happen. And she's going to discuss with you about how the content of the Job Fair Prep Week went.
So thank you, Sunshine. Yes, that is how I was involved. I am a workshop developer and a facilitator for our workshops here at Michigan Works Southeast. And I was very excited to be part of this program. The program that we created was a Job Fair Prep Week, and it was to be held 1 week prior to the hiring event. And we felt that the success of our program was predicated upon job seekers being at their best. And so we wanted to give them tips, not only for the hiring event itself, but for them moving forward and applying for other jobs and other situations. So our training program that we developed consisted of, like Sunshine mentioned, a resume strategies workshop, an interviewing skills workshop. We felt like those were the 2 best workshops to prepare our job seekers. But we also wanted to give them an opportunity to have their resumes reviewed one-on-one with a resume expert so that they could tweak their resumes and have the best possible product to bring to the job fair. And we also wanted to give them an opportunity for a mock interview so that they could practice interviewing, they could be more comfortable with video interviewing, and also get some really good feedback so that they were able to improve their interviewing skills. And so we went into the development of the program, you know, considering some things and hoping that our training was going to solve some of these issues. You know, first, many job seekers are unfamiliar with resume writing. And if you work with customers, clients, job seekers, you know this to be true. Whether it be a newbie to the workforce or a seasoned professional, many individuals just have never had resume training, and they really don't have the perspective on what constitutes a poor versus a not so good resume. So we're really hoping to give them, best practices and best tips of good resume writing. Good resumes are important to employers, and the employers have expectations. And one of the expectations is that the resume is going to help them understand that that candidate is qualified. So part of our training was helping the job seekers understand the employer's expectations. You know, many job seekers have a lack of experience with interviewing and video interviewing, and interviewing is stressful. And when you add video interviewing on top of that, it adds another layer of stress. I personally had a little trouble getting comfortable with it myself when we transitioned our workshops from classroom to Zoom. So I understand how they feel about that, but the more practice that they get with video interviewing, the more comfortable and the better that they would be. And many job seekers haven't taken part in a virtual hiring event. Why? Because they are relatively new and they're becoming more popular. So we wanted to make sure that we could prepare the job seekers, the participants, the very best we could, help alleviate some of that fear of the unknown going into the event. And hopefully then they would have a successful outcome when attending the event. So I just want to share with you, briefly some of the topics we included in our resume training. So these were our training objectives, our training outcomes. First, we focused on applicant tracking software. And as time goes on, it becomes more and more likely that candidates' resumes are going to be reviewed by the robots before they're evaluated by the humans. Applicant tracking software is very popular in many, many companies now. So, we realized that at our particular hiring event, it was possible that they wouldn't be using applicant tracking software. However, many medical centers, medical facilities, healthcare facilities, they do use applicant tracking software. So if we're going to have resume training, it's just something that's so important now for candidates to be aware of how this software works and how it evaluates their resumes. And, keywords and applicant tracking software goes hand in hand. If you're not familiar with keywords, those are job-specific skills, job titles, credentials, criteria that the employers use to rank candidates in their database systems. So again, put some emphasis on helping our participants understand how to find relevant keywords and to make sure that those relevant keywords were included in their resume. We talked about identifying and describing qualifications, which are the knowledge, skills, and abilities needed for competency in a job, how and where to document education and training, how to describe their work history, and, obviously we gave them some good grammar tips because obviously grammar, spelling, punctuation, all important in a resume document. So with our interviewing skills workshop, we added that technical element. We wanted our participants to understand if they were going to be video interviewed, what were some of those technical considerations, including background, including lighting, hardware to use, things of that nature. Plus, we also were able to integrate a Brazen tutorial into the training. And that way our participants could get a little bit of exposure to that Brazen platform, a little bit of comfort level before they attended the event. We also talked about things like, importance of first impression. Of course, that's important whether it's a video interview or a face-to-face interview. Talked about dress for success, verbal, nonverbal communication. And we were very lucky because our business service team was able to acquire some interview questions that came from actual healthcare professionals. And so we were able to provide those as samples to our participants and, really stress the importance of answering these questions in advance. Don't wing it. You have some really great material here to prepare. And then we talked about post-interview follow-up, thank you notes, timeframes for follow-up and things of that nature. So, our resume and our interviewing workshops, we're kind of resume interviewing 101 with a healthcare flair to it. So what we're really excited about and really proud of is, providing an opportunity for our participants to participate in a mock interview so that they could get that just extra practice and really good constructive feedback. So what we did was we developed an objective scoring method so that each candidate would be asked the same questions and evaluated as objectively as possible. So the answers to the questions were rated, and we used the scale of highly effective, effective, and ineffective, and it was based on predefined answer criteria. So then we were able to provide that objective feedback to the participants, and we could point out those areas where improvement might be needed before they actually go to a real either video or face-to-face interview. And you know, that feedback that we gave them could help them at that Brazen hiring event or any hiring event. So we're really happy to provide that level of training and support to our participants. And I have to tell you, we did have successful outcomes, and we actually have a success story. And so I think our next slide, I think Sunshine's going to share that with you. So thank you, folks.
Thank you, Patty. Yes, I'm going to share about a participant story. So let me just kind of go through the run through a little bit. So we offered a week-long prep week prior to the event, the hiring event that was to take place the following Tuesday. So on Tuesday, the week before, we had a 1-hour resume workshop that was done virtually, where participants could come in and learn. And then on Wednesday, we went ahead and did the interview and Brazen tips workshop. And then Thursday was a allotted time for people to prepare their resumes, have time to ask me any additional questions or Patty, and prepare ahead of time for the possible mock interview that was to take place on Friday. So I first met Elizabeth, who was a former teacher who was looking to switch careers into the nursing field. She had been, I met her at the resume class on Tuesday virtually. She had been attending college and getting her prerequisites completed for the nursing and was looking to start the nursing program in the fall. So she knew that she was going to need to get some sort of healthcare job in order to get additional points to possibly enroll in the nursing program. So her plan was to go to this hiring event, meet with some employers that could get her a nursing assistant position and help her get certified as a CNA to earn her place into that nursing program. So she, along with the other participants in the other workshops, they eagerly attended all the workshops. She asked for resume consultation, which I happily provided virtually to her through Zoom, and asked me individualized questions specific to her story to, understand how might I answer some questions in an interview that's related to why I want to be in healthcare and changing from the teaching field. So then finally on Friday, she did a mock interview with me and did really well in this mock interview and asked a ton of questions, but I was able to provide her with that objective feedback from the rubric that we had. And but on the one hand, we knew that the virtual hiring event, as I mentioned before, is that the Brazen platform wasn't going to have the video chat option. It was just going to be a chat in the box type option. But I knew that if they impressed an employer well enough, there was a possibility that they were going to be asked to do a Zoom interview. So I prepared the participants and said, hey, listen, make sure you come dressed for an interview because it could be that you have an interview on the spot. Not knowing whether or not that might happen. But Elizabeth was able to get a lot of feedback from me. She went over through the weekend and was able to do some preparation, and the event took place on Tuesday. And before the event ended at noon on Tuesday, I received an email of gratitude from Elizabeth. She had met with several different employers, chatting with them on the Brazen platform, and then was asked to attend a Zoom interview with a local employer that morning. She had the interview, and before noon, she was offered a job so that she could be a CNA, and they would pay for her training to get certified. She was so happy and excited to start her new career path. So now Amber will share with you some of the best practices we've learned from that. Are you still there, Amber?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there you are.
There I am. Sorry about that. So best practices, honestly, you know, when we're looking at doing these job fairs, we just wanted to kind of point out some of these things that we kind of learned, you know, just by doing through partnerships with Leo, the things that make and can help these job fairs be more successful. So a lot of times, you know, just collaborating with Leo, they actually did a great thing by allowing us to have the opportunity to be assigned a kind of a middle person, right? So this person helped to educate us as well as keep us informed of the next steps and things like that as we move through the Brazen platform. So I strongly suggest that if you are looking at doing these virtual job fairs and using the Brazen platform, that you really kind of work with your liaison at Leo to make sure that you're going through the steps, because it really made the event more successful and it really did help. Things like collaborating with employers and partners, you know, gathering the information, for instance, the sector of industry that you're going to be working with is ideal so that you can provide that information to, you know, the individuals that are putting on the prep week so that they know, you know, which companies they'll be preparing the job seekers for, helping to identify what types of positions that will be at the job fair for the job seekers to, I guess, interview for, you know, things like that. Just more information that you can provide, the better off and the more prepared the job seeker will be, which ultimately makes it so that your employers feel a little bit more of a success as well by the end of the job fair. Identify job seeker market based on employer's geography. And the reason I wanted to put this in there is because, you know, in the very beginning, we were doing job fairs region wide, and we noticed that our region was pretty large. And so by incorporating job seekers from, say, Hillsdale area for, you know, a Howell job description or a Howell job opportunity, that transportation, that commute is so grand. And so really identifying who your employers are, what the opportunities are, and then really taking the time to seek out the job seekers in that area or within a certain area to commute, you know, to try to create the best fit individuals for those opportunities. And then also when you're looking at these job fairs, you know, the Brazen platform recommends 25 to 30 employers for an event. And I know as we worked with Brazen throughout the time, you know, that minimum 25 did lessen, but you're really trying to gauge, you know, roughly between 25 to 30 employers. And so in order to do that, you really need to think like, where is in my area the opportunity to gather that many employers? You know, so in our area, we're heavy in manufacturing, we're heavy in healthcare. We've done a chemical collaborative event. You know, we did a hotel, a hotelier's employer of the day, or I'm sorry, a hotelier's job fair. You know, so each of those were kind of like given us the ability to really seek out those job seekers that would be good fit for those positions. And it really created value to those employers. And then also to our educators who were trying to prepare those job seekers as well. And then using social media marketing in a very, you know, targeted way so that, you know, you are making sure that your time frame is good. You're making sure that you're reaching out using the right avenue. Job seekers really know Facebook. We also use LinkedIn, Twitter, but really trying to drive people to the Michigan Works websites as well so that, you know, they can see our different services, but then also connect and get involved with these job fairs as well.
I think it's important to know, Amber, that we had a collaboration with our local community college to help with marketing and strategize as well. So they presented the marketing to people who are in the healthcare field that were taking classes at that time as well.
They sure did. And we actually found quite a bit people register from that, you know, that direct target communication that was very vital to the success of this.
Great. Thank you, Amber. There was one question that I saw that might be for you. I think we answered some of the other ones in the chat, but there was a question about, what was it? Oh, which sectors did you find the virtual approach most successful in?
So, you know, I mentioned a few different job fair sectors that we worked with. Looking back, I have to say probably the job fair that we did with the Jackson County schools was probably the most successful on both ends. So I feel like there was wonderful partnership between, you know, Michigan Works, Brazen, and the Jackson ISD to prepare different marketing tips, you know, reaching, you know, social media as well as radio, TV. I mean, it was just a wonderful marketing schedule scheme that was able to reach a lot of people. And the outcome from that event was probably the most successful that I saw through COVID.
Thank you. And that's all we have for you.
Perfect timing, you guys. It looks like you covered all the questions either in the chat or with that sector-based question that you just addressed. So thank you, everybody, for both of these informative sessions, and thank everybody for attending. Don't forget to go visit that exhibitor hall and participate in some of that virtual networking, and have a great rest of your afternoon.
You as well.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you.